What is going on in Indiana? The Fever just took 2 losses, and while one wasn't as bad points-wise, it's definitely something people are zooming in on because of how they lost these games. The Fever just lost to the Valkyries and the Portland Fire in pretty similar game plans, though executed very differently. And with the rest of the league watching, it's turned into an official game plan to beat the Fever. On both sides of the same coin, target Caitlin Clark and wear down the rest of this team. We saw at first with the Valkyries, they tried to get this started on May 22nd when they played the Fever for the first time. I specifically wanted to look at this game first because as much as everyone's going to pile on to her stats, and on one hand that's valid, both Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell had bad shooting games in that first win against the Valkyries. And this is actually when that referee argument started, because their highest scoring player was Aaliyah Boston with 20 points. And then you had Kelsey Mitchell, who scored 19 on 4 of 10. So yeah, going 11 for 11 at the free throw line definitely helped from her standpoint. And then looking at Caitlin Clark, she went 7 for 15, 22 points, but she went 4 for 5 from the line. So just from this game, you could see where Natalie Nakase and her coaching staff were tightening up on the game plan. They were seeing where those things were working, and by the next time they met, this was the overall game plan. This wasn't try it and see if it works on this play. So when the Valkyries planned to beat the Fever, it was mostly on Veronica Burton. She was defending Caitlin Clark, and Veronica Burton is an excellent defender. She has multiple defensive honors and awards throughout her college and professional career. So that was already point one. Make her as uncomfortable as possible with the ball. Force the ball out of her hands, and definitely keep her from getting to her spots. Now on the other side, they attacked her relentlessly. It didn't matter who had the ball, because if Caitlin Clark was guarding you, it was going to be your turn. ISO situation, take her off the dribble, whatever you have to do to tire her out. Because the offensive and defensive plan was obviously meant to work together. Just a cycle of chaos. Keep her off kilter on offense, wear her down on defense, and almost let the rest of the team win. Almost. Because in that second game against the Fever, when the Valkyries squeaked out a win by 2 points, their highest scoring players were Caitlin Clark and Raven Johnson with 16 points each. And Caitlin Clark shot 3 for 12. They were on her. And unfortunately, in the Fever situation, this is when it starts to deteriorate as a team. This is your leader, or at least the face of this franchise. On some days, the league. So how do you respond if she's falling apart? If the body language isn't there? If the body language isn't there, that's just the energy on the floor. In this game specifically, it is easier to look at the coaching decisions because Natalie Nakase obviously came into this second game ready. Full-on game plan, even if it did mostly include Veronica Burton. But it's like the Fever came in after that first win thinking they didn't have to make any changes. So you can't just say it was all Caitlin Clark's fault, because you have to get more out of your teammates if they're taking away the head of the snake. Both Aaliyah Boston and Sophie Cunningham only went 4 for 11. Kelsey Mitchell went 5 for 13. So the Valkyries were just playing defense at the end of the day. Yes, they were targeting Caitlin Clark, but the rest of the team was locked down as well. So by the time you get to the Portland Fire going against the Indiana Fever, their coach just ramped up both sides. Not only were they attacking Caitlin Clark, but they were playing fast, attacking everyone else at the same time. Getting into the paint, putting pressure on their defense, not just the primary defenders. Everyone had a job. And that's really important to consider for an expansion team. The Fire have a lot to prove, not just with a bunch of role players, but with a new system they're using that's different from every other team in the league. So not only are you getting bought-in players to the game plan, they're playing hard. You got an excellent game out of Emily Inksler, a statement game out of Megan Gustafson, and they know they're playing a nationally televised team. They know this is where they can get more eyes on their teams with wins and playing hard, and they did that. They held Caitlin Clark to 1 of 7. 1 of 7. Not only did she only make one shot, she only attempted 7. That's crazy defense. She only went 4 for 5 from the line, so she wasn't even getting the foul calls. Aaliyah Boston had an okay night, giving them 18 points, going 7 for 13. You got 15 off the bench from Sophie Cunningham. So in a lot of ways in this game, players were stepping up. They were doing their jobs. You got a bad game from Mo Billings. I think Meg kind of shut her down there in the paint. 0 points. Attempted no shots. And nearly everyone on this team had a negative plus minus on the stat sheet. They were awful on defense. And more accurately, Portland was just on fire on offense, pun intended. They just looked like they were in a flow state, putting a lot more respect on what Coach Sharama has going on in their practices over there. Now, looking at Clark specifically, every player has off nights. Every player gets taken off the dribble. You can find highlights of anyone getting cooked. The problem in this situation is, as the face of this franchise again, and sometimes the league, losing your cool, that amount of frustration, that negative outward energy is just draining. I can only imagine for the teammates. We're just fans, but it looks bad optics wise regardless of the loss. There are plenty of teams that have diehard fans and they've never made the playoffs. I've never been a Fever fan, go Tamika Catchings, but this just looks really bad as a franchise and as a league. You got new fans checking in and the behavior is just embarrassing. She's getting cooked on defense, mad that her offense isn't working. So it's just this perfect storm of temper tantrum and, oh my God, it's not going my way. And again, a lot of players have had games like this. It's just unfortunate that it's gotten this far. When you also have a handful of players in the league that also have a lot of pressure on them or a lot of cameras in their face and have to stand in that pressure cooker and still perform when it's time and display great sportsmanship. Because when you do think about players like Asia Wilson and Paige Beckers, coming from their coaches and their teammates, they're coachable, and these situations just makes it look like you can't really tell her anything. Like, she knows it all already. You kind of just gotta let her do her thing, good or bad, and live with the results. But to keep the blame pie moving around, I know she had a sense of, damn, I'm out here on an island all by myself. Where is everybody at? So you can start to look at the coaching and the game plan when they are attacking your star. What is the plan? To say it again, but it's like because they didn't have a plan and they're feeding and following Clark and she's breaking down, you've got nowhere to go. Because even trying to play both sides of this argument breaks down a little bit when you consider the Fever went on a late season run last year, getting them into the playoffs and out of the first round. It was actually pretty impressive, a fun team to watch. Now, I'm not saying they don't need Clark. Obviously, she's going to get you attendance and viewership, but it does bring you back to the overall WNBA question of what is going on in this front office. What is going on with the roster construction, the relationship between her and her coach, the relationship between her and the GM and the ownership, and everything going on here. Because the losses aren't bad in a vacuum. They're embarrassing on a larger scale because they have people zoom in and look at things they wouldn't have readily looked at before. Most specifically, Caitlin Clark's leadership, or lack thereof. Roster construction, because who do you have next to Caitlin Clark if she's bad on defense? Who do you have behind her helping the situation? It's a team effort. There are players that get to stay on the floor that aren't the best defenders for other reasons, but the team plans around that. And if that's what the other teams are going to do to the Fever, they have to get that down now. And then on the coach's side, I really hope Stephanie White hasn't lost the locker room. And unfortunately, Caitlin Clark, because that's big star power in that franchise, and they may make more moves to make her happy or more comfortable. And while you can debate whether or not that just appeases her or enables the situation, they're going to keep their star happy. My biggest concern is the relationship between Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark, because she's obviously a good coach. The run with the Connecticut Sun, again, the run the Fever had at the end of the 2025 season. And right now, you can just hope that disconnect is from frustration, because they will obviously make changes. I will not be surprised if they win their next game and have a different game plan around Clark. It will also be interesting to see the next time she doesn't play, because they've had that up in the air the last few games. Because you can be 100% sure the media will be zoomed in on a game where Caitlin is not there and what the rest of the team is doing. Because even losses like this bring eyes that aren't normally on the WNBA. Hell, Skip Bayless thought Stephanie White was fired for a minute. So we know there are eyes on the league right now. Not just the Fever have to perform in that pressure cooker. So I want to give Caitlin Clark the benefit of the doubt, but Asia Wilson has to perform, Paige Beckers has to perform, AZ Fudd has to perform, all under this microscope. Even when it comes to the referees, I'd rather that situation where Paige is making them laugh than Clark clapping in someone's face and not getting any repercussions for it. So again, I'm pretty sure they'll make changes. They may go on a little run here. But overall, I'm just glad it's not being ignored. It's not being swept under the rug. We got a lot of critics in this league that a lot of times lean towards players more heavily than others. And hopefully these things just make her a better player and even help the franchise. I mean, that's better for the league. Even if you're not a Fever fan, even if you're not a Caitlin Clark fan, her PR team be working overtime, man.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.